Hello ladies and gentlemen, today we have 2012 Dodge Grand Caravan and you are watching Just Do It Yourself channel. So the symptoms are whenever it's super cold, the transmission would not shift from the second gear, so it will go first, second, and then it will get stuck. So the RPM go high, the speed won't increase that much. You shut it down, start again, and it keeps going as it's supposed to. This has been happening for the last 2 years through the winter, so I had probably a handful of times this happening. Also, another symptom is really rough shift. So you start driving and then it shifts like from the first to second gear and it's like boom in a transmission. And after that, it's kind of indicator that it won't shift anymore. So you shut it down and keep going. So when I looked at my scan tool, this has been like a month ago. So I had P083B, LC pressure switch rationality. So that's indicator that the transmission fluid pressure sensor is not working. So here is the sensor, and I will leave links in the description to the video for all parts and tools that you might need. And also please check my new Amazon channel. The links are below the video. Okay, let's get under the car and I will show you where the sensor is. So here's our transmission. Here's the like paper shield, and underneath there is another shield, metal pan basically. So we'll need to get it out and the sensor will be somewhere at this point. First I will remove the negative terminal from the battery, since we will be working with the wiring and we don't want any power coming to the sensors and wires when we work on those. Next I'll pull out the coolant reservoir. So just on 2 clips, so theoretically it should come out. Remove this engine cover. So there is one clip, here's another one, so it just slides in. So then we have this hose. This probably would be enough for us to get that cover out, but I would like to get it removed so we can see more. Okay. So now we can just put it aside. Next we will disconnect this wire plug, so we press this piece inside and then just push it out, just like that. Next I will pull out the harness retainer, one on top. Next I will remove the wiring harness from the bracket that is attached to the dipstick. So now we can pull that harness away. Next we need to remove that paper shield, and we need to remove one nut on top over there. There are 2 at the bottom. So there is one, as well as there is one. So we'll remove those 3 10mm nuts. So now when all those 3 bolt nuts are removed, we will try to pull this cover off. It seems like it has to go up since there is a dipstick tube. So I will just pull that cover up. There's not much room for film in it with all the wires, hoses, but because of that dipstick tube, the only way to get it out is to pull it through the top. Okay, so I pulled it up and then I dropped it down. So at the end of the day it came down from the bottom of the vehicle, but in order to get the tube off, you need to pry it up first. Okay, next I will clean everything with compressed air, because as soon as we remove that cover, if there is any debris, dust, mud, it will be falling onto the open transmission parts, so we want to make it as clean as possible. So now I have placed the oil catch tray underneath and will continue cleaning the transmission around where the pan is attached with brake clean. Brake clean with the straw works really well. So make sure that everything is clean. When we remove that cover, when we remove that pan, the transmission is nice and clean. Okay, now when everything is washed, we'll just go around and remove all those 8mm bolts. There will be a few studs that I believe are 10mm, but the rest are 8 all the way around. So we'll get that off. Alright, so now when all the bolts are removed, we put the oil catch tray underneath, and now we need to break a seal, and this pen sits on the RTV silicone, so we'll just put a tiny screwdriver. That wasn't difficult at all. And we'll just pull this down. And here's our sensor. Okay, so first we will unplug the sensor. So we need to push this red clip back and press on it and pull out. That's the first step. Next I will remove 1, 2, 3 Torx T25 screws, just using ratchet. Okay, I've removed those 2 little ones. Now just removing the one that holds display to the gear position switch, whatever it's called. It's kind of under pressure right now. I'll just try to. We'll need to remove the bolt all the way first. This is one bolt, and then just carefully remove this plate. And lastly, there is that 7mm bolt that we need to remove. Okay, so this is super long one. Now we can pull the sensor out Here it is. Okay, so I have cleaned all the parts that we removed from the transmission. You want to make sure that they are as clean as possible. With the sensor, you want to make sure that this O-ring, this seal, came out together with the sensor. It didn't get stuck in the transmission. Obviously, you want to compare the new sensor and the old sensor, and they look exactly the same. So at this point, we can proceed with the installation. So let's get the new sensor in. Just gently push it in until it sits all the way. So now we will install this long bolt with 7mm head, and I will torque it to 55 inch-pounds. Next we will get this plate in place. So we'll need to kind of press it down for the bolt to go in. Next we'll put other two T25 torques. Actually, I'll use my impact just to get them snug. And same as the other one, we will torque those T25 to 55 inch-pounds. It's not a lot, but those are M5 bolts, so we don't want to put more torque than that. Perfect. Now we can install the wiring plug and lock it. So next step, I will grab a shop towel with some brake clean, and I will go around to clean the surface. Doesn't look like any RTV silicone got stuck to the transmission part, so we'll just need to make sure that there is no oil and there is no mud like here. So we'll just grab some brake clean, paper towel, and clean it up. One thing to mention when you clean this, make sure that nothing gets into the transmission. That's really important when you clean on top. So make sure that if anything falls, it falls on the opposite side from the inner pieces that are exposed right now. Next we need to clean the pan itself, and we're using razor blade. Just need to scrape old silicone, old RTV silicone off. If you somehow happen to have a gasket for this pan, I know like for the bottom oil pans, when you remove the filter you get the gasket. In that case you still need to clean everything, but you don't need to use any RTV silicone in the gasket. It's either or, unless you just put a few droplets for the gaskets to stay in place, but never apply everywhere the silicone and then put gasket on top of it. That would not work well. So just get this clean. Okay, so now when the pan is clean, we are ready to apply silicone, the RTV silicone. So you just do a bit, and it's really important to go around the holes. If you don't, most likely that you will develop a leak. So I'll just go all the way around. Another thing worth mentioning, that read instruction what it says for your RTV silicone. Like this one, it tells us apply silicone, put it, install the pen, don't torque it yet, so just kind of finger tight, let it sit for an hour, and then torque it to the torque specs. And also it recommends allowing it 24 hours to fully cure before you put it into operations. So basically, before you start the engine and let transmission fluid touch the gasket, you want to let 24 hours cure time. I don't have 24 hours, but I will leave it for the night, because I will need a car early in the morning. But many shops, obviously they rush to get it out of the shop, so they will let it take right away, and usually that leads to leaks in the future. So you want to let this cure properly, because if you don't, the oil touches the fresh silicone, so not only most likely you will develop a leak, but also you will get contamination of the oil. So I will continue doing this, and then we will put it on the transmission. Okay, so the RTV silicone has been applied. Next thing, you will need to clean your bolts, since the old bolts are contaminated with the old silicone, and sometimes there will be like a 1/4 inch of silicone sticking out, and that you will add a fresh silicone, and most likely that it will mess up your torque, so there is a chance that you could over torque. So make sure that your bolts are clean. Wire brush works really well if you have a bench grinder. If not, the wire brush on the drill works well too. So the cover is in place. It took me a few times to get it on without touching the silicone on the other side. So we need to watch for this plug. Basically the strategy is you kind of hang it on that plug, and then it stays in place, and you start putting those bolts. So just watch really carefully when you put it in, so you don't touch any other parts of the transmission with the silicone. So now I'll just continue installing those bolts, and remember, we'll just make them finger tight for now, and in an hour or so we will come back and we'll torque them. Alright, so it's been an hour since we put the cover back. So now I'll just go from the bottom and all the way to the top, and we'll torque all the bolts to 90 inch-pounds. All the bolts are torqued, so now we'll go ahead and try to put this paper cover back in place. I might need to go under the hood to do that. need to play a bit, but in general it should go back absolutely the same way as we got it off. So now just put 3 nuts, 2 on the bottom and 1 on top. Get those nuts tight. Socket is still on. With the smaller one and 1 on top. There's that 1 nut on top. So get it tight. Okay, next we will need to plug the main harness back into the transmission. So we push it in and then pull this lever back to lock it in place, make sure that it's secure, and then we want to put the harness clip back into the where the dipstick tube is. It's kind of hard to reach, but basically the harness attaches to the dipstick tube plate. Oh, come on. Pull. Next we will put this reservoir back in. I need to push the hose, upper radiator hose away, and then push it down. And we just need to make sure that we get it into those holes where it kind of locks in place. Oops. Okay, I got the top one, didn't got the bottom one, so one more try. Perfect. So now it's all in place. Last thing, we can connect this hose to the wiring harness. Great. Now when everything is back in place, we should be able to just connect our battery terminal and get it tight, and that's 10 mil. That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. In terms of next steps, since we haven't lost any transmission fluid when we remove the cover, we don't need to add. But if you have lost, maybe yours was leaking, you were leaking, so there is the video how to change transmission fluid on this car and how to make a dipstick to check it. You actually just use engine oil dipstick and just need another mark, so check those out. I will when the RTV silicone is cured, I will do the transmission relearn that's required when we service the transmission, so that will help it to shift more smoothly. So I'll make a separate video how to do the transmission relearn, since not all of the people would have the tool for that. So check that video if you still would like to learn how to do that, and check the tool that I'm using. Other than that, please check links in the description to the video to any parts and tools that you may need. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and as always, just do it yourself.